top tourist attraction, with parents being warned to take special care of their families when they visit. It follows cases in which children have been assaulted on theme park premises and claims that Disney has failed to carry out thorough background checks on its workers. So, should you be worried before taking your child to Florida's Magic Kingdom? Vanessa Collingridge has tonight's report.
For thousands of British holidaymakers, the summer starts here with the drive into downtown Orlando. More Brits take this trip than any other foreign visitor, and while there's temptation at every turn, all roads seem to lead to Disney World. With 4 theme parks spread across 43 square miles, Disney World is the world's most popular holiday destination. Officially, it's the happiest place on Earth, a place where bad things don't happen. But for one 7-year-old British girl, something bad did happen. To protect the child, we won't identify her mother. Her words are spoken by an actor.
The holiday was planned from October when my brother said he wanted to take the family away, give the kids a treat, you know. The kids were all beside themselves with excitement for months beforehand, and it was wonderful to see them so happy.
My client came with her 2 small children to Disney. It was a surprise trip given to her by her brother. Her brother is a police officer in Great Britain.
We'd spent the day at MGM Studios riding on the Terror Tower, doing the usual things, and were just buying a few final presents before we were going to go.
The children walked up to a street vendor that was selling puppets. The puppeteer was attempting to, or pretending actually, that he was demonstrating the puppet, and it was the type of puppet that had legs that attached around the child's waist. He was actually taking one of the legs and reaching up under her dress and fondling her. Then he would drop the leg and say, "Oh, let me get this clipped," and again, and he did this 3 times, fondled the child under her dress.
The first I knew of it was when she came running over, obviously upset, and said that the man over there had touched her down there. I just went into shock.
The little girl was 7 years old at the time this happened, so she went and told her mother, who of course got the brother involved, and he was furious and went and confronted the person selling puppets, who of course denied having any contact with the child. At that point in time, they contacted Disney security.
The man who carried out the assault is now behind bars. Jeffrey Byes is currently serving a 21-month sentence for committing a lewd act upon a child. He made a full confession.
On January 16th, I did something I did not want to or could stop myself. I touched a young girl in a way I should not have. I don't want to do this again.
With Byes behind bars and his victim back home, the story could have ended there. But the British family are now considering legal action against Disney. They're furious with the way the incident was handled.
The mother gave the statement at approximately 7 o'clock. Well, it was not until an hour later that finally the police were called, because the brother asked Disney, who are the local authorities and when will they be here? And much to his surprise, Disney said, "Oh, do you want us to call the police?" And he said, "Of course I want you to call the police. This is an offense. I mean, this is a criminal assault on a child. It would be an offense in Great Britain. I assume it's a criminal offense here."
Are you saying then that until the uncle asked for the police to be called, Disney weren't going to bother?
Correct. That's certainly the impression they got. They were also frustrated because the next day after this occurred, Disney left a message at their hotel saying that if the children would like to attend a character breakfast, a breakfast with Minnie and Mickey Mouse, that they could do that. And of course the mother did not think that was appropriate, since it was a Minnie Mouse doll that he used to assault her. Following that, they never heard from Disney again.
Disney declined our request for an interview, but they did give us this statement. They point out that Byes was not a Disney employee. They claim that the parents did not want to press charges at the time, and say that to date, the parents have taken no legal action against them. But the case has left some people asking whether Disney are doing enough to protect their younger guests. One man who has his doubts is ex-cop Doug Raymond. In 10 years on the Florida force, he flushed out hundreds of paedophiles by infiltrating chat rooms and websites. He also set up a special squad to fight them in the theme parks.
The only park that we approached that was unreceptive was Disney. They told us that they didn't have any problem with pedophiles in their parks and that they didn't need any assistance of any kind.
Disney was saying that the problem didn't exist on their grounds.
Yes, we approached some of the theme parks about going into the parks and doing some random surveillances, looking for predators in the parks. All of the theme parks that we talked to, as soon as we explained to them that we weren't interested in coming in wearing full police regalia with shotguns and making a big public spectacle, then they were completely cooperative. Disney's position was, we don't have any problem and we don't need any assistance.
But do Disney have any problems? This is Tigger, a much-loved children's character. But this was Tigger too. Jimmy Lee Dennis wore the costume and mingled with guests while awaiting trial for molesting a mentally handicapped child in his previous job. But the most worrying thing about Tigger is he's not the only one. Christopher Labour was a transportation supervisor at Disney World. Detectives trapped him on the internet trying to meet a 13-year-old boy. Then there was the scout leader at Disney World's Fort Wilderness. David Fisher is now serving 15 years for sexually assaulting 2 young girls. Shots like those from a local prison website are now being downloaded by child protection groups that are springing up in Florida.
These on the doors, and if there are any questions, answer them. Okay.
They carry out highly controversial notifications where they name and shame convicted paedophiles in their own community.
Hi, I'd like to give you this. This is a flyer of a sex offender who recently moved into your neighborhood. His address is here, his description here, and the crimes he committed are here.
Renee Bray runs Kids in Danger of Sexploitation. Slogan, touch their butts, lewds your nuts.
I think if it stops a sex offender from having access to one child, then I will walk these streets 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
After the Jeffrey Buys case, Disney started carrying out a national criminal background check on new employees. They say they also regularly screen all 50,000 current staff against a Florida-wide database of sex offenders. Kids say that's still not enough. They want a national check on everyone.
Universal Studios now does these national criminal background checks, including current employees. And if Universal Studios can do it, Disney can do it too.
But even the most stringent checks don't always work. Renee Bray did her own when she hired this man, Cliff Barrineau, to mind her son and 2 daughters. He'd worked at a number of theme parks, including Universal and Disney. But on his first night in his new job, he sexually assaulted Renee's daughter, Ashley, who was then 11.
6 years after the incident, she still wakes up in the night with nightmares. There's also a problem with her dealing in relationships. She was 16 years old and had a baby.
H is for honey. My favorite snack, says Winnie the Pooh. Where's Pooh? That's right. And where's Pooh over here?
Disney have also come under fire from 2 former fans, authors Peter Schweitzer and his wife Rochelle.
Well, Peter and I both grew up with Disney like millions of other children, and it had a pull in our imagination. So when we moved to Florida in 1994, we thought we'd become annual season pass holders and take advantage of that like millions of others. We never intended to write a book about Disney.
But write it they did, and as the title suggests, it was far from complimentary. And while the couple have themselves been criticised for exaggerating Disney's problems, they say they're just urging caution.
The fact is that a child that is lost at Disney World is going to trust Disney employees in a way that they probably are not really any other employee anywhere else, simply because it's Disney. And they feel the Disney magic, the pixie dust is in their eyes, and they tend to believe that bad things aren't going to happen to them there.
And I do believe Disney is excellent at creating an environment that really does make you feel like you've left and you have come to a magic kingdom. I mean, that's what Walt Disney wanted from the beginning. If you've ever noticed, Disney doesn't have any newspaper stands in the park. You're totally sheltered from everyday problems and living, so people tend to have a false sense of security.
And when it comes to security, Disney have their own force, some 1,300 strong. Critics call it a Mickey Mouse police operating in a mini-state.
They really and truly have something that no other theme park in the country has, which is the 911, the emergency telephone system. When someone picks up a telephone line in Disney and calls 911, it doesn't go to the police department. It goes to Disney security. On the other hand, if you're in Universal Studios or Wet n Wild or any of the other parks and pick up a telephone and call 911, you're going to be talking either the Orange County Sheriff's Office or the Orlando Police Department.
Disney told us that all calls for law enforcement are passed on to the police and that county law enforcement's presence on site has been enhanced by 19 deputies.
Disney went on to say that they had an average daily population of over 200,000 people, yet they had lower rates of crime and sexual assaults than any similar-sized city in America. They assured us that the safety of their guests was of utmost importance and that British holidaymakers will be in good hands this summer.
And those holidaymakers will come in greater numbers than ever. It seems that the Disney magic is impossible to resist, even for the company's fiercest critics.
You have a 2-year-old son. Would you take Jack to Disney?
That's a really good question because I've thought about that a lot since we've written the book, and I probably would. And Jack's almost 2 now, and he's already fascinated with Winnie the Pooh or Pooh Bear, and wants the story read to him again and again. So I probably would take him, although I would be very careful with him.
Oh, that's right.
I would take my granddaughter to Disney, but you better believe she'll never leave my side, and I would never trust anyone just because they're in a cute little costume.
But like so many Disney stories, this one has a twist in the tale. Remember Jeffrey Byes, who assaulted the young British girl with a puppet? A few months later, a letter arrived at his home. It was from the Disney Corporation, offering him the chance to apply for a job.
The Walt Disney World family is always looking for ways to reach out to potential cast members like you who want to make friends, make magic, and make a difference.
This person has committed a criminal act, a lewd assault on a child, and yet they're sending him a letter asking him to come to work for them. It's frightening that, you know, how did that slip through the computer system? How did that slip through? And could he have slipped through the system and become an employee?
Now, Disney told us that Jeffrey Byes wouldn't have slipped through their security checks if he'd taken up the invitation to apply. The company said the brochure had been sent to 100,000 homes. The fact that one was sent to Byes' address was, they say, purely a coincidence.